So the prediction that if you look far enough away, you should see a universe that's different to ours, because it should be so hot that there were no galaxies and no stars.
Yeah.
And we've done that, and we saw it. It's called the cosmic microwave background radiation.
Yeah.
So we can take a photograph of the universe in the past when it was different, when it was very hot.
How
very
far?
dense.
What's the furthest photograph in time that you've taken?
It is that. It's the cosmic microwave background, which is 380,000 years after the Big Bang.
Wow.
So we know that
380,000 years after the Big Bang.
we know that before that time, the universe was so hot that atoms couldn't form, and
Yeah.
the universe was opaque to light, just like a soup of electrically charged particles, and light couldn't go through it, so you can't see through it. But then, as the universe cooled down, there is a direct prediction, first of all, that it gets cold enough for atoms to form, and at that point it becomes transparent.
Yeah.
And the light from that time should then be able to travel in straight lines across the universe, and we should be able to take a picture. And we have done with a satellite called Planck. So we've taken the picture. So
Amazing.
So when people say I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory, you can say, well, here is a picture.
Of course.
Of the universe.
Here
So
it is, yeah.
there are direct predictions.
And that's what people want, and we all do, and I do it, and I
amazing.
get frustrated that I can't explain a theory or anything like that. I want to hold it up and say there it is. And
the other amazing one actually is that we know the universe is about 25% hydrogen, 75% helium, and the other way around, 25% helium, 75% hydrogen, pretty much nothing else. So the two simplest elements in that 3/4 to 1/4 ratio. And it was a big puzzle because we know that stars make helium out of hydrogen. That's what the sun's doing.
Yeah.
But they can't make enough. And so the reason that all this helium is around is because it got made in the first couple of minutes in the life of the universe.
Right.
And we can predict exactly how much should have been made. And we can measure it, and it's the
Wow.
right answer.
That's
So you
amazing.
have direct predictions, and also the amount of some lithium as well in the early universe. There's a tiny amount which you can predict from the Big Bang Theory,
Yeah.
and then you can go and look at the starlight from distant stars, and you can measure it, and you find out that it agrees.
Okay, well,
It's
let me
amazing.
Let me
It's
ask Ricky's
amazing.
big question here, which is still confusing me when you talk about this, which is that stuff's made in the first few minutes after the Big Bang.
Yeah, because it was a big nuclear reactor then.
Yeah, but that's the question. Is that I can't remember what you called it, but that field that collapsed in on itself. What did you call it?
Of the inflaton field.
The
yeah.
inflaton field, right?
Yeah.
How does that create in the reaction of the Big Bang?
So that's before the Big Bang.
Yeah,
so you
but
get this thing.
that's all there is, and
What
then the
happens?
Big Bang creates lithium and helium in the first minute or so.
Yeah.
How?
So what happened was that in this idea called inflation, so the universe is expanding very quickly. This thing sort of draws to a close, and these particles called inflaton particles essentially condense out into space. So it's like almost like ice forming on your window, from water vapor. And then those things then decay. They're very massive, heavy particles, and they decay down into the particles, the quarks and electrons and all that stuff out of which we are made. So that's the theory.
And
So
in
they
very
emerge
simple
and then
terms,
decay.
all the different elements are just percentages, numbers of atoms that are clumped together that
Yeah,
make
so-
them
so
heavier
hy-
and denser and all that.
So
So
hydrogen's 1 proton,
Yeah.
helium's 2 protons, and
Yeah,
2
I know
neutrons.
that.
and so
Okay.
some of the fission
Fusion stick together.
took collapsing stars to make half the elements, didn't they? And the
Yeah,
ones
heavy
used for
ones.
life.
But the lightest ones, helium in particular, got made at the Big Bang, just after
Sure.
the Big Bang.
So, for example, carbon wouldn't have been
That's in stars.
made
Right, but
until the
helium
first
doesn't get made
collapsing.
in the Big Bang.
That's Krauss's point that atoms to make life came from different stars. So the atoms in your left hand came from a different star than the atoms in your right hand.
Yeah.
And he says, "Forget Jesus, a star died for you to be live."
Yeah, lots of them.
But
And then the hydrogen comes from the
helium
first
can
few
exist at
minutes
great
in your-
temperatures. Is that right then? Because if helium's there a minute afterwards, presumably the universe
was
is
getting-
incredibly hot.
Well, it was
at
getting
that
a bit
point.
chillier. And
Well,
that's why
even a minute
it
after-
all
But it's just an
stopped.
atom, isn't it?
It
That's
had
the
stopped.
point.
By about 10 minutes, the whole thing had stopped. So no new elements were made after the first 10 minutes or so until the first stars appeared. And we're watching that now, by the way. We've got a big new telescope, which the headquarters is at Jodrell Bank in Manchester, but it's being built in Australia called the Square Kilometre Array. And that's going to look so far back, so far out into space, that it will be able to see the first stars forming.
Right, I've got to
Which
play
is
a
gonna be-
record because
Yeah.
David's face
Yeah.
looks like your granddad listening to someone talk a foreign language.
It always looks like that.